My name's Theresa. My name's Theresa Island. I'm the national manager for the generator, and I have my awesome team here. We just went different ways this afternoon. So I have Ray, June, and Alison. You can see in the office there. We're delighted to be able to bring this workshop to you because we know for a lot of people when they first come to the generator and we ask them what their dreams are, one of their dreams is to own their own home. And we are delighted to bring someone to you, Theresa. That's easy. She's got the A at the end, who has the knowledge and has the experience of being able to help people to do just that. People like you are and can own their own homes. So I'm going to hand it over to Theresa, who comes from a financial capability background as well as in finance and helping people with loans. So I'm just going to hand her over to her, and she's one of our awesome expert coaches, and we are blessed to have her. Thank you.
Talofa everyone. Thank you for the introduction there, Therese. I'm actually really grateful to be here. So talofa, kia ora, te whānau. Thank you for joining us today. Um, so welcome to our workshop, Pathway to Home Ownership. A little bit about myself. My name is Theresa Alaimoana. I'm a New Zealand-born Samoan, raised in South Auckland, and I've been raising our four kids with my husband here in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, since 2018. My parents hail from the villages of Whalelata and Lauli'i, so I'm a proud Pacific woman. Um, I'm a financial capability facilitator and coach. But prior to this, I worked as a mortgage broker for 6 years in Australia and New Zealand, and but I've been in accounting and finance for 20 plus years. So not only do I work closely with families in a professional setting, I also bring compassion into my work, having lived experience of being raised with having little to buying my first home at a very young age. But I'll share about my personal story later on. Um, so today's session is a very high level overview of the steps to home ownership. It does form part of a series designed to help you learn, apply, and reinforce the knowledge that you will gain from the workshop. But my goal today is really to empower you with just clarity, motivation, and just practical steps to move you from wherever you are, whether you're renting, whether you're in social housing, but moving you down that housing continuum into buying your own home. So I do hope I achieve this goal for you today. And so just for the sake of time, I will run the workshop as it is. But if there are any questions, just drop it into the chat, and one of my team members will let me know, and then I'll try to answer them at the end, if that's all good with you. Or if you can just move to the next slide there, please. Oh, thank you. So that's a photo of myself, my husband, and my four beautiful children. We'll just move on to the next one, please. Cool. So now why home ownership? So renting versus home ownership. So here I like to kind of talk about the why rather than the how, the what. I actually really like to start with why home ownership. Because often people, they know they want a home, but they don't know why they actually want one or the benefits of actually owning a home. So there are pros and cons of renting versus home ownership. And if I am honest, I can only personally think of more cons than there are pros. So this is in terms of renting. So with renting, obviously, it offers shelter over a set period of time. Um, it does offer flexibility if you want to live in a particular area that is probably too expensive to buy. So it gives you that flexibility. So instead of buying a home in that area, you can rent a home. Um, the negatives with renting is obviously landlords have control over how the property is used. Um, and they also have a choice of who their tenants are. So also when tenants can move out, so they basically can choose who they want in their home, and they can also give you a notice to leave when their situation changes. So, that's, looking at renting versus home ownership. So going back to, renting as well, you're subject to rent increases every year, and inspections every few months, and it can be really unsettling when landlords decide to sell or move back in. So yeah, renting can be just quite although, like I said before, like it does give you that, shelter, that, a sense of home, but it is only, it doesn't give you that long-term stability. And the key point that I'm trying to say is sometimes, our people, often when they move into a home, that home becomes like if they're renting, um, they often turn that home into, they raise their children, they settle in there, and then they're there for a long time. So what they're actually doing is they're building wealth for the landlords, and it's not really for themselves. For landlords, rental properties are a business. For tenants, we make it our home. It's a place where we settle. We get really comfortable, but we often forget that one day that landlord's going to make a decision that's going to change everything. So it's great to have as a solution for shelter and security, but it doesn't offer that long-term stability or even like a tangible asset that we can actually call our own. So with home ownership, so it's building long-term equity. So the why? So home ownership creates equity, it creates financial security, and it builds wealth through over time, and that's just through the property appreciating, um, which we will go into detail, probably not in this workshop, but it basically means it increases in value over time. And if the market is good and conditions are right, property, will grow in value, which is a very positive thing for those owning a home. It also provides stability and legacy. So owning a home provides, your usability. It also gives you pride. And it also has, the ability to leave a legacy for future generations. Also owning a home, is something I've been working with a lot with families over time, over the last, number of years, is the ability that a home can actually build generational wealth. Um, and also financial independence. So home ownership builds generational wealth for your children, your mokos, and it creates opportunities and financial independence for you and your family. So when I say opportunities, I'm looking at opportunities such as, education. Having a home may allow you to have a choice of which schools you can send your kids to because you might be able to afford it then. Also, leveraging your home to start or invest in businesses. Even building and buying more property. With owning one home, you can actually use that property to build and buy more. Um, and that's just using, your equity, which I won't talk about into detail here because I do want people to stay with me. But what it does is just it really does create those opportunities for you, and it could be something like building a small whare behind your home for your elderly parents, which we recently did, and it just keeps all our whānau together. So yeah, so that's the positives of owning your own home because you basically could, use the equity in there, build another home, for your parents. So you're just really keeping everyone together, and you also have that physical asset that you can leave behind for your kids. So it does provide peace of mind that peace of mind for you or for me as a parent that if anything was to happen, God willing, nothing happens, tomorrow, but it's that peace of mind knowing that we've left something for our children. And that, and obviously our children's children. So it does build that legacy and also generational wealth. The other thing about owning your own home, it empowers financial independence. So what that means is that you're actually in control of your asset. Not only can you put, your taro plantation where the one that you've always dreamed of doing, if you know what I mean, if you know, you become the landlord or the landlady. No one's going to come and say, or unless, you default on your bank repayments, but you basically are in the driver's seat. So those are the positives of buying a home, and often people go, oh yeah, I want a home, but I actually don't know why. So I hope that answers some of your questions. If you're wondering why would I want to buy a home, yeah, and it might reinforce those reasons. Um, cool. If I can just move into the next screen. Cool. Hey, I'm going to share with you a bit of a personal story. So I'm going to be vulnerable with you for a bit, and so I wanted to share my story with you. One, to inspire and to empower anyone who feels that home ownership is out of reach, and that encouraging you that owning a home is achievable, whatever your social status is. So, like myself, I started from humble beginnings. My siblings and I, we grew up in housing, New Zealand. So for 19 years of my life, social housing was where we started. Um, we experienced firsthand the challenges that come with poverty, as a result of, high interest loans, a few addictions here, helping family overseas, and just parents who, moved over to New Zealand, looking for a better life, and they only knew what they knew. So, English was limited, financial literacy was basically zero. But what we felt the impact of it as children, the emotional, mental, physical challenges that come with vulnerable situations like that, where it creates an environment where it's almost impossible to see past it. So being the eldest of four, I took responsibility at a very young age, working multiple jobs while in school, and saving most of my pay each week for 3 years. So by 19, I had saved $10,000. Um, I know that doesn't seem like a lot now because it isn't a lot right now to buy a home, but at the time, back in the 90s, um, I saved $10,000 and it was enough to buy our family our first home. So we just move into the next screen here. So with our first home, this was our first home at the age of 19. It's a home we called our own. And then from that point, 10 years later, we sold our first home as our family grew from kids to adults. And then we upgraded to a bigger home in the early 2000s, before I moved to Australia where I married, and I continued the pathway of buying property, buying, selling, leveraging from one property to buy and then build the next, buying land, selling that, and kind of, getting myself I guess into this routine because I kind of knew what, I was feeling like I knew what I was doing. And so eventually becoming an investor myself. I guess what's interesting here is that although we moved to Australia, a completely different country with completely different housing rules, the fundamentals of financial literacy, such as budgeting, saving, and managing money, well, it remained the same. So it didn't matter whether I was here in New Zealand or in Australia, we still learned those same skills that we took with us. And that helped us still be able to buy property. So what I realized is as I got older, I realized that it didn't matter how much you actually earned. Some people say, "Oh, I've got to have a lot of money, to buy a home." And they think that they need to earn like a six-digit salary, or they think their little, if they think their five-digit salary isn't enough. But it's not actually how much you earn. It's actually how well you manage what you earn. So that's the key lesson that I learnt throughout the years. And if once you know that, you'll be able to just live within your means and be able to manage what you have, and actually how do you elevate I guess how do you make most of what you have to get to where you need to be? So yeah, some really important tools there that I learned. One of the biggest ones, um, I guess one when I normally run workshops and I usually run them face to face, and I also do one-on-ones with lots of people. What I do notice, or what I have realized, that there is a mindset and motivation is such a big important topic, one that we often overlook. Um, and I think I've decided to include it in this workshop because I think it's important that we um, think about, take this into account when you are looking at buying a home. Um, so, the reason why I share that is because I know what worked for me. So if you imagine a 16-year-old, how did I even know at 16 know about home ownership? On paper, my environment should have really projected a different path. But God's plan, and He was always in full control from day one. So when I reflect back about how that happened, I realized it was this shift in mindset. Although my environment didn't really kind of nurture that, it should have been, you should have actually gone the other way. I, for some reason, I had a different mindset. So it began with that, and my mindset shifted from a scarcity mindset to an abundance one. So that was, I've recognized, I realized that from a very young age that I had, for me to actually have things, to actually get to where I want to be, I had to shift whatever wasn't here. And secondly, it was creating really consistent habits that supported that mindset. And then creating that, the consistent habit, but also being very disciplined about it. It wasn't easy. I can tell you that. It's not an easy journey, but it did teach me. Um, yeah, it was a journey, and it was habits that served me well as an adult. And I've, kind of passed it on to the kids, which I hope they've been listening and watching. But I'm only sharing with what I've learnt, and what I've done myself. So I wouldn't share things that I haven't actually done myself. So realizing that if I visualize the goal, which I did at a young age, I made a plan, and that was to go there, get a job, and then adopting disciplined habits, and that was learning how to save, not getting tempted to buy the McDonald's or buy the KFC, and get all into, buy the flash phone, or actually when I was 16 we didn't have phones. It was more buy the flash Doc Martens. So now you kind of know how old I am. It was kind of really looking at the flash clothes and the bomber jackets and all that stuff. So I was not tempted to do that. I actually had to really adopt a discipline, creating really good habits, and be very disciplined about it. So one key advice I also want to share is that what elevated my thinking and even influenced some of my decisions as I was going along my journey was surrounding myself with the right people. So people who would cheer you on, people who are way more successful than myself, and I still continue to do that. And they're the people who genuinely want to see me succeed as well. So those who walk the talk. Yeah, because I wouldn't take, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't take a financial or budgeting advice from someone who's never owned a home, or someone who's always in debt. I share this because a lot of the times I have families who come to me and they'll say, oh, so and so said that I can't do it because I have really bad credit, or I'm just really poor with money, and etc. etc. Or so and so said I can't do it because it's way too expensive to buy in New Zealand. So I get a lot of this coming through, and and yeah, it's true, it is expensive, but I just believe that I think if you really want something to work, it really does start with that mindset, and then start with writing that plan down, and then also to the plan, and actually then putting the action behind it. And we'll just move into the next screen. Yeah. So, so enough of the, all the emotional stuff and the deep stuff. Let's get into the practical steps. So the practical steps, so the essential steps towards home ownership, is getting in the know. Okay, so really understanding how money can work for you, knowing what's coming in, what's going out. What does this getting to know look like? It's the first part, the first step is budgeting. So this is tracking your income, knowing your expenses, and this is expenses like what are my what are my fixed expenses? What are my expenses that keep going, moving up and down? Sometimes it's $100, sometimes this, but actually really understanding where your money is going. And also understanding the difference between a need and a want. Is this essential? Is this non-essential? Do I buy me a $5,000 or $9,000 car to get me from A to B, or do I buy me a $40,000 car just because my cousin has one or it looks cool to have one? So it's really understanding the difference between the two, and and also having, again, I said, the goal in mind, and making sure that everything you do, everything in your, I guess, in your control to make sure that everything is lining to where you want to go. And anything that's not of where you want to go is that's stuff that you want to remove. The other part is number two, credit report. Have I got credit report there? Yeah, credit report. Oh, sorry, going back to budgeting. So when you know where your income and expenses are, you actually can identify some savings opportunities. Because once you have a good handle of where where your money is going, you'll be able to see you'll be able to create a savings buffer, or you'll be able to create savings. And I've happened to have that with lots of my families who didn't realize, oh wow, okay, I actually have money left over, you know, once I manage my money better. The other thing is credit report. So knowing what your credit report, well, knowing what a credit report is and what your score is. So you can get a free credit report through Centrix. Um, and then just being able to maintain, so the score is from 0 to 1,000, but just maintaining a really good score. Anything more than 500 would be a really good score. Anything from 700 upwards is an excellent score. So being able to maintain that is what the banks will be looking for. Okay, so to actually keep a really good score, it means paying your bills on time, reducing debt, or try to avoid getting debt. So when I say debt, I'm talking about these short-term loans, car loans, credit cards, afterpay, the buy now, pay later. If we can avoid um, getting into debt, that would really help your score. If you do have debt, just making sure you pay them on time. Um, the other thing is saving strategies so practical steps is like starting small, building consistently, and using tools like KiwiSaver and family support. I often find KiwiSaver is the best savings tool. That's the only savings tool that you can't actually just take out whenever you want to. So you actually have to go through a process. But I find with KiwiSaver, if you are having trouble putting money aside, and like what do I find with some families is that they put money aside and they end up taking it out again. Um, One way you can actually avoid or get tempted to take money out is, you can voluntarily put that into your KiwiSaver. I know there are other strategies as well, which I could talk about in my next workshop. So, but yeah, KiwiSaver is an awesome one. Oh, okay. So what banks look for? So I have here the four C's. What they look for is income stability. So um, so when I say that, it's capability. Key factors would be, sorry, let me just have a look here. Yeah, so income stability. So that's where banks can see consistent income come through to meet their mortgage repayments, and it's over time. So, you take a mortgage out generally for 30 years. So what banks need to see is that there's consistent income coming through, because I don't want to put you into hardship. So consistent income can come from having a benefit, But as long as it's not putting you into hardship, because yeah, as long as you've got another source of income, because you can have a benefit to accommodate or subsidize or top up what you already have, or you might go into into joint home ownership with a partner or some adult children. So having that joint income and making sure it's consistent is what the banks will look for. So that can come from employment, a steady job, part-time job, can come from casual work if you've been working in the same industry for 12 months to 24 months. Um, yeah, so and there's also the benefit too. And I think someone did ask a question about the benefit. The other things a bank looks for is the other C, which is capital. So that's your deposit. So this is where you have a deposit, basically. So the banks, generally, the general rule is 20%, 20% of the value of the home. So that's the general rule at the moment. But banks today are accepting as little as 5% deposit. So that's what they need to see. And they need to see that in your bank. So that can be in the form of KiwiSaver. Um, so your deposit can be a KiwiSaver. It can also be your personal savings. So personal savings, they need to see at least a consistent, savings routine over 6 months. That's that, so that's what they want to see. You can count your paying your rent on time for 6 months. That can be classed as savings because that's showing them the ability that you have the ability to pay things on time. And also, if you weren't renting, that would be savings. So yeah, so that's what they would look at. So it's really strong savings record that you want to see to demonstrate your financial responsibility and able to handle future expenses. Um, the other one is character. So the other C is character, where they look at your credit score. And I know I mentioned about credit score and also debt. So having a really good credit score is important. So anything from, like I said before, from 500 upwards is good. And if we can keep that up to, yeah, keep that score more than that, that would be great. If it's anything lower than that, then you still have there's still hope to increase that score. It just means you just need to get a good coach to help you through it. So there's lots of coaches like myself across Aotearoa. You just need to find one, work with them, work with the plan, and then get them to help you, or and then obviously you stick to the plan, but you definitely can improve that score. I actually had a family earlier this year who had a score of 300. So that was in March. So now in December, her score was it's around 500. So she's now going through a home loan process with myself. But it was just me giving her the plan and her committing to that plan. And then myself and this person just checking on her every month just to make sure that she was still on track. So yeah, it's definitely there's still definitely a chance for you to increase it because I know a lot of our families have credit scores below 500. The other C is also the capacity. Oh, sorry, can I just talk about the credit score again? If you can actually check that every year as well, so it's always good to check that, get a free report every year. Because if you're anything like myself, who has a father, a brother, a cousin, a nephew, all with the same name, then yeah, you want to be able to just make sure that someone hasn't accidentally taken out a loan in your name because it might be for your relative. So yes, I will send the credit score link as well. But yeah, so definitely do that. Check because sometimes yeah, because and there's also fraud. Someone can take your identity, and then next thing you know, you've got a loan in your name. So definitely check that once a year, and then you can always dispute that. Again, a coach, a financial mentor, or a financial coach can guide you through that process because they can advocate for you as well. The other C is capacity. So banks consider family responsibilities that impact, your financial stability and how you can and your repayment capability. So this is looking at how many children you have, whether you tithe, whether you regularly send money back home to the island. So this is all important to us, and banks are aware of that. They are aware that we have cultural responsibilities. So it doesn't mean they're going to say no to your loan. They just all they want to do is they take it into account, and it is acceptable because it is important to us. They just want to see that you are able to manage all of those and still be able to pay a home loan. So yeah, so I think the best thing to do whenever you are dealing with a mortgage advisor or a financial mentor, just definitely tell them everything. Like be able to make sure you just be transparent about your expenses because one, that will quicken the process, and two, because if you don't, the bank is going to pick it up anyway, and it's just going to delay it even more. And then yeah, so if you can just be upfront with all your expenses. Um, I guess the key thing that they're looking for, again, is just demonstrating your financial responsibility, and be able to pay expenses on time and your debt on time. And I guess if you think about it, the loan is over 30 years. So they just want reassurance that if they are going to lend families money, that they're not going to put them into any, negative hardship or, going to make things worse for them, but the family is able to pay that over the 30-year term. Cool. We can move into the next one. Um, so getting your deposit together. So building a deposit. Okay. So as I mentioned, the general deposit required is 20%. However, banks are accepting as little as 5%. This may cost you a little bit more because it is on the low lending. So I forgot the word. That they add an extra bit of premium on it because you've got a 5% deposit, which is still acceptable. It will just cost you a little bit more, but otherwise, the positive is that it still gets you on the property ladder. There are three ways to build a deposit. And so one, as I mentioned before, is your personal savings, being able to show consistent savings over a period of time. The second one is KiwiSaver contribution. So you can, if you are relying on your KiwiSaver contributions and you know that you might have trouble putting extra money aside, like be able to save, then what I normally tell our families is if you want to maybe look at increasing your KiwiSaver contribution from 3% to maybe 6, because you can always switch back to 3, and that's just a matter of talking to your employer. Um, that way, yeah, you know what you see, what you don't see, you don't spend. So I often do encourage and say, look, why don't you just increase it? That way, yeah, you don't actually see it. Or you don't actually, you can act it, sorry, you don't touch it. The other way you can build a deposit is gifting. So if you've got a rich auntie or uncle who can give you a deposit or gift you some money, that's also acceptable to the bank. What I have seen though, sorry if I can just touch on so what I have seen with the accounts in general, um, often people come to me and they'll say, "Oh, I just don't know where my money is going. I just feel like I'm not managing well. Um, I have nothing left over after all my expenses. When my benefit comes in or when my wages come in, after all my expenses, it all just goes." When I do go into the one-on-one, in-depth kind of assessment, I realize that they have multiple accounts with no real purpose, which is why they feel like it's out of control. Because they might have, income and expenses on one side, and then they've got another income with another bank account somewhere else, and they're transferring from one account to another, and so it's very, yeah, it's not very manageable. The other thing I have noticed is if you have a business, they mix their personal and their business accounts together, which is also very difficult to manage if you have both sources of income going into one, which is, yeah. So that's one of the key challenges I have seen with some of the families that I work with. So again, getting yourself a coach or a financial mentor will help you with that, and they're generally free. Cool. So mine's in the next one. Oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to touch on the most common traps that a lot of our hardworking families get caught up in. and that is debt. So the reason why they get caught up into this is because sometimes they don't understand the true cost of debt. They because it's almost like that instant gratification. I just want that new phone, or yeah, I want those new clothes, so I go to Red Rat. Um, and then they don't realize the true cost of that. Um, and so when I say the true cost of debt is sometimes they haven't read the finer print where it might cost them extra if they've missed that repayment. They may have not realized that um, actually my casual job ends over Christmas. How am I going to now pay this back? So it's just it's looking at, it's like doing a full assessment on, can I actually afford this? What if I stop working? Yeah, and sometimes we don't do that because we just want the thing. Like we just want that car or we want that new phone. And this time of Christmas, it's very common. So that's why I encourage you to have someone else to help you through that, getting the right advice before signing a contract. I've helped many families with who've actually gone and purchased a car without really understanding, the what the terms and conditions are of the contract. So I've helped families get out of that contract because they realize, oh gosh, I didn't even understand what I was signing. I felt like yeah. So there's a lot in there, but it is. So what I do encourage people to do is that if you are looking at purchasing a car or purchasing something and you're not sure whether you can afford it, I would encourage you to see a financial mentor to do a budget first, to see if there is room there to pay for something else, so if there's room there to purchase it and be able to afford the repayments, or sometimes a financial mentor might actually have other options for you. So it might not be going through the bank, but they may have other options of you how to get the same, to buy a car, but through another avenue. Yeah, so definitely I would encourage you to do that. And then also taking in your contract as well. So what I do tell people is that when they do have they want to get a car and it's this expensive car, I just say, look, take the contract with you, but don't sign anything on the spot. Take it home with you because you do have generally 5 days to think about it and you can pull out of it. Or, yeah, even if you have signed it, you still have 5 days to cancel. So that's what I generally say to people is I take the contract home, and then let them know to say, hey, look, can I come back to you? Because often we're like, oh no, we're getting FOMO. I want to buy it now because this is the only car in the country left. Which the sales guy, fair enough, it's their job. But yeah, that's where I find a lot of our families get caught up in is buying those big vehicles that that they get themselves into trouble when they do that. Um, yeah, so I guess we're moving to the next. Yeah, so yeah, I guess learning about the debt and also understanding your credit score are key things. We move into the next screen, please. So we're just looking at exploring options. Some of you may be sitting here thinking, oh, geez, this is going to be impossible for us. I have terrible credit. I have too much debt. I am on the benefit. Um, Again, I encourage you to get a coach to work through the options, but there is more than one way to achieve home ownership. Um, the three main pathways that I am aware of, and I have looked at the ones that are available to our people. In Hamilton, there is. I'm sure Auckland would have the same. Um, but there are three ways that you can do it. So it's just making sure. So the first way is the traditional pathway, which is where you save a deposit and then you apply for a mortgage through the bank, like your traditional banks, or go through a mortgage broker. So that's the first traditional way. The second one is renting to own. This is where you pay your rent, but it contributes towards owning the home over time. So that's generally over like the fifth year. So you would move in, Like you would sign an agreement. Um, you move into that house, and it's generally like a new house. You will pay rent and it'll be above market value. So normally that house, if you were just renting it, it might be 500 a week, but these ones might be seven because say you're paying 700 a week, so 500 will go towards the rent and 200 will go towards your contribution to a deposit. So that's how that works. And then that will allow you over 5 years you do that. And in the fifth year or even the sixth year, they would look at refinance. They will look at so they'll assess it to see whether you can actually purchase that home outright or purchase that home and actually be the homeowner. So you buy the home that you actually live in. Yeah, so that's how that works. There's a lot of pros and cons as well, but that is a way if people are already paying rent, and you may not be in a position to buy a home outright because you don't have a deposit, rent a home is an option because then it gives you the 5 years to build a deposit. The third way is shared equity. So this is where you partner with a housing provider to reduce all the government. Actually, in my case, it's with a housing provider to reduce the upfront cost, but also helps you build your deposit. So how this works is really that it makes it easy for families to own homes. So you might, and all the family needs to come up with. So as I mentioned before, the banks need 20%. With the shared equity program, you basically come up with 5%, the family does, and then the provider will make up the rest. So they might make it up they might put in 25%, which will give the bank 30% deposit. So what will happen there is that from day one, you own the property with the provider. So you co-own the property. And then over time, you pay them back. You pay back the provider because what they've done, they've put in 200,000 and you would have put in like 25,000, for example, you would pay that back. And you'd pay that back using the equity of the home. And then eventually, depending on the terms and conditions of the agreement, and with you and the provider, usually around the 10th year, you would then buy that house. You'll pay them out, and then you would own the property in your own name. So there are three ways to make it easy for families who might not have the traditional bank requirements. Um, Obviously, it's important that you exercise your own checks and that you're working with legitimate organizations and obviously getting the right advice for the products. So that's, getting a lawyer and having a lawyer look over the paperwork. But just I wanted to share that with you that there's definitely more than one way to achieve home ownership. So I'm just going to wrap up. And I guess I encourage you, as I've done for myself and my family, and I've coached many others to do the same over the past 3 years, is really to really visualize, to really have, that goal that you have about owning a home, visualizing that home, right down to its specifics from the size, the location, how many rooms. What I have in my room, and I've done this since I was young, is actually draw it on a vision board and write it in a journal. So I honestly don't know how that happened, but I know that God, like I said before, He planted something in me, and then from that young age, I was able to kind of do that, write it in a journal, created a plan, and I was taking intentional steps towards achieving it. So home ownership is possible with the right mindset, a tailored plan, and then actioning that plan with the support of your tribe. Okay, so when I say your tribe, I mean, the right people, the people who've actually, owned a home, and they genuinely want to see you own yours. A financial coach, a mortgage broker, and then also a property lawyer. So as mentioned, this workshop is very high level. I do a lot of these workshops face to face. Sometimes I have a class of 30 in my in my in Yeah, and my class is awesome because we just break up into small groups, lots of activities. So this is the first time I've done it online, but I am looking forward to doing more of this online. So this workshop today is part of a series of an in-depth one, and it's designed to guide you through every stage of the journey. So if you do have any questions and you wish to know more about how to register for the next workshop, the generator team will provide you more info in due course. But otherwise, are there any questions? I think I did see some questions earlier. Do, 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 do. There was a question around, if it's okay, can I answer the questions now, or is there?
No, that's fine to answer the questions.
Okay. So there was a question around how can I buy a home when I'm on a benefit? What is the process? Is there a criteria? Is it an easy process? Um, so I hope the workshop has answered your question, but I can answer it again. It is possible. The bank that only doesn't just look at your income, they look at everything else I mentioned. Um, and they generally consider all sources of income, including benefits, when they assess your ability to pay a mortgage back. However, if the benefit is your only income, then it is harder to qualify for a standard mortgage, but you might be able to qualify for the other types that I mentioned. Um, yeah, so the other two types, the rent to own and the shared equity, they're a lot more lenient and they're designed for those who are on a low income and those who don't have a deposit or low deposit. So I would encourage you to look around your area. Um, and to see who actually provides that. For example, in Hamilton, we have a couple who do Pacifica, which is the Culti Pacifica Trust. That's the program I work and I lead that one. But there is also another one who's Māori organization and they do the rent to own as well. So yeah, if you want to message me, just message me privately, or message our team and I can find out more information about who the other provider is out in your area. So the other question I have there, are there any schemes for buying a house for a single income family? I'm the only breadwinner of the family. My family consists of me, my visually impaired husband who doesn't have a job, and two children, 6 and 7. Absolutely looking at the other pathways for a single income family. That is definitely a good option for you. I have worked with families who are the only single mum and have been able to get her onto the program that we're offering at Culti. So yeah, there's definitely other ways that you can own a home. Um, what's the other one? How much should the deposit for rent to ownership be? And are there any banks that you would recommend with low mortgage interest rate deals? Okay, so I'll just break this into two parts because it's a long one. How much should the deposit for rent to ownership be? So the deposit is generally 20% to buy a home. So for rent to ownership, um, so for renter ownership, it depends on the provider. Generally, you don't need a deposit. You just need to sign a contract to say you'll be paying the rent for the next 5 years and put some towards a deposit if that's what you're asking about. But otherwise, generally, it's 20% to buy a deposit, so 20% deposit to buy a home. Otherwise, the banks accept 5. Any banks that could be recommended with low mortgage. So the best banks is always generally your traditional banks. But I would say the rates have dropped. So the rates are dropping down like, I don't know, I think it's around the 4%. So they're all pretty low at the moment. Whether one bank is better than another, it's really difficult to say because I'm not a mortgage advisor anymore, and it's probably best that you do speak to someone um, who can help you with that because it's not just yeah, it's a case by case basis and depends on your situation where they can suit the bank, match the bank with your needs. Um, yeah. So does the property agent take 30% of sale proceeds? I don't know. I think it depends as well. 30% is quite a lot, but I'm actually not sure. I guess every agency will have its own fee. Um, so I don't know how to answer that question, just because I'm not a sales agent, but what I've seen is, yeah, I don't know, someone else might know. Is that you, Ray? Would you know the answer to that?
Yeah, each real estate agency has their own commission structure. So they range from anywhere 2% up to about 5%, depending on the level of service that you get. So normally it's average 4%. I don't know where the 30% came from. That's highway robbery, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely huge. But yeah, that sounds about right, between 2 and 4 or 5. But yeah, those are the only questions I have, unless there's any others.
Yeah, we've got two in the chat. One from Philomena, the other one from Yasmin.
Okay, let me just open up the chat to have a look. Oh, okay, the credit score link, please. Leveraging an existing home to purchase now. Can you do that if the existing home isn't fully paid off? Yes, you can. So I'll just answer Philomena's and then I will send you the credit score link, Beth. You can do that if your home's not fully paid off, depending on the value of the home, the registered value of the home, and your mortgage balance. So you don't have to have it paid off. So if there is equity in the home, then you can draw on that to do what you like with it. Yes. I hope that answers your question, Philomena. But yeah, you don't need to have it paid off.
Oh, sorry, Theresa, I'll just quickly read that question for when it comes to the recording. Leveraging an existing home to purchase another home. Can you do that if the existing home isn't fully paid off?
Yes, you can do
The
that.
second question from Yasmin, you mentioned family support after KiwiSaver. Any recommendations for rent to own and equity ownership, please? So much.
Family support after KiwiSaver. Any recommendations for rent to own? So recommendations for rent to own equity ownership. Were you talking about the different pathways? So I guess if you live, if what area would you be in? It really depends on your area, Yasmin. If you were in Hamilton, I can definitely help you with that. Yeah.
Looks like she said yes, she's in
Oh,
Wellington.
in Wellington. Okay. Can I come back to you if you can message? I do think I know an organization that's doing, sorry, an organization that's doing exactly what we're doing here. If I can come back to you, I can find out and then send you that information. If that's okay, Yasmin. Oh, and the credit score link. Let me just put that in now. So that's the credit score link where you can get a free report once a year. Great.
Theresa, so that was
Yes.
centrix.co.nz.
Cool. Great. I think that's it for now. If there's any other, no other questions. So I hope you've all enjoyed today's workshop and have taken away a few golden nuggets, just to help you think about where you are. And where you like to be. So again, I definitely encourage you to find a coach, financial coach, if you find that you can be better with your money, have more control over it. I would recommend you seeing a budget advisor or a financial mentor, who can help you, with the tools, give you some, techniques on how you can manage your money a lot better. Because again, that's what the banks are looking for, good money management. So, as the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Theresa. That was really highly engaging and also got everybody thinking. And I think the other thing is thank you for sharing your story, because it makes people realise that things are possible. It is possible.
Cool. I'm glad I did it without crying. Normally I'm in tears. Tears because it gets quite emotional talking about that. But I realize that yeah, God puts us in positions for a reason, you know. But we go through things for a reason. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Have we got any the other workshops? Philomena asked about the follow-up workshops. We're really happy to. Theresa said that that she's happy to run the follow-up workshops. So we'll advertise those, particularly to the people that came along to these, and let you know when the next ones are, so that you can come along and join those. Also, we'll share Theresa's details with you, so that if you wanted to work one-on-one or wanted to find out more, and we'll share the slides, because I think share it with your whānau, because I think too often, like Theresa said, people think it's out of their league, and it's not. It's just how big your dream is, and how committed you are to make it happen. And we'll be here. We'll do as much as we can to help you make it happen for you and your family, because we too believe that we see too many people. 84% of the people that we support are renting, and most of those are in private rentals. So the money is only going to someone else's wealth. It's not to the family's wealth. And we would far rather we help people to be creating their own wealth, their own intergenerational wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Stable homes, healthy, happy families. I think that's what I've been, that's the key message I've been hearing across the board about, you know, when there's stability, you know, the whole family well-being improves as well. Having that peace of mind knowing this is our home. Yeah, it's been awesome journey actually.
Very humbling. Thank you. Any more questions? You've got there's lots of bouquets there.
Cool. I've popped in my number there if you want to have a chat, just one-on-one. I'm happy to have a kōrero. And also if there is any feedback on what you'd like to hear more about, then that would be great to share with the team. And then I can kind of design a workshop based on what you want to see in here. Because it's a little bit different when you do it online, because you can't do the hands-on activities. I guess we could do breakout rooms. Yeah. I try to make it very interactive with our group. So yeah, but if there's anything in particular that you want to know and want to see done, because what I have done is show people how to actually put a budget together. You know, putting through an Excel sheet with income, expenses. You actually show them the way how to do that. And also what I also have done is cash flow. How to prep for, yeah. Anyway, just let me know what you want to see, and I'm happy to help you with that.
Oh. Papetai te lava, Theresa. What I got out of your presentation was you inspired us, people that are thinking about buying their first home, from a young person to have a dream and to execute that dream through desire and discipline, shows that anyone can do it with the support and help from you. So malo apito, and thank you for your great work.
Malo apito, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Take care. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.